My name is George Schieferdecker. I'm a partner in BKSK Architects. We've been around since 1985, working in the New York area. We've always been what I would call a very collaborative firm. We're not a firm of any single partner with a mammoth reputation. We have a group of very, very talented people that we work with, and a group of very talented partners, and we try to bring them all to bear on each individual project that we do. We work primarily in New York City. We're sort of expanding a little bit outside of the city at this point, but primarily in the city. And we love being a part of the landscape of New York and contributing to it with each one of our buildings. We like to be architects of the city of New York, and so the skin is where the outside of your building sort of meets the inside of the building, and the building establishes its public presence and contributes to the cityscape, as well as being about and concerned with quality of life on the interior. So it's absolutely critical. It's got a multitude of roles. For One Van Dam, which is a residential building, it was important to us to give a level of privacy to people on the inside, as well as give them the opportunity for the views that are spectacular from this building at the edge of Soho. And it had a very unique site in that it could be a kind of freestanding building mid-block, which is unusual. So it was important that it have a kind of continuous look all the way around it, and simultaneously sort of emerge from the context, which was context to the north. So there was a lower block, lower mass, and then an upper block that sort of reached out over the top of it and became the more object-like element of the building. And then it was a fairly narrow building, so that, in fact, in many units you could almost see through the building. You could experience the western exposure and the eastern exposure at the same time. So we're talking about a building that had to be done on all four sides and thought about as a true object within the landscape simultaneously. So, our panel type wasn't all that easy, and we had a lot of corners around and interesting conditions to deal with, and AZA-INT stepped up to make all of that happen. So. In a project like this, when we conceived of an opportunity to work with a unitized skin, an exterior, it involves a lot of people. And it involves experts on the construction and fabrication end, we bring our design ideas to the table, and then it takes a process of back and forth to actually bring them to reality. So it's the contractor, the fabricator, the installer, the exterior wall consultant, the energy consultant, the architecture, the client, obviously, enormously important, and in this case, brokers who also have opinions and ideas of what is important to the people we're marketing to. I think we try to be adventurous with what we do. Obviously, there are limits in terms of budget and speed of design, or whatever you want to call it. But I talked about our firm being a collaboration, and I think that that's probably what's critical to trying to do innovative design or innovative production and construction and architecture, is to include as many people as early on as possible in a process. I think it's always a back and forth, right? Mm-hmm. AZA-INT, you can tell from their portfolio of buildings in the city, it tends to be ambitious projects that have a certain amount of architectural creativity to them. And we appreciate that in a firm that's willing to kind of take on new challenges and help you realize a design ambition that is perhaps not what you see every day. And so I think that AZA-INT in that regard is like a perfect partner to push the limits of what can be done. And we do that with our design, and they tell us what we can and can't do in terms of actual fabrication, and hopefully we push them in terms of thinking about new ways of doing things. I think the benefits of unitized construction are huge, just to begin with, as a general category. And in this particular case, we had a certain level of complexity that if we get to the building, we can explain. But there were multiple pieces that had to come from various parts of the world and this country, and they had to be assembled and put together in a system that then could be shipped to the site and clipped on the building in fairly fast and comprehensive way. So the benefits are that these panels, this exterior skin, gets put together in a factory where quality control can be managed in the best possible way. You need performance out of the unitized and curtain wall construction that you put on it. So the advantage of having a specialty curtain wall company do your project is that, again, you can control these things in the factory. You can test them in advance, and before they arrive at the site, you can know how well they will perform. And that's the kind of work we did. We went through a rigorous testing protocol. They were on board for every bit of that, every step of the way. And those are the things that make this project successful in the end. So the specific experience that we had on this project was, again, it had to do with the vision of trying to create something slightly different, and AZA-INT's willingness to take it on and help us make it a reality. If you look at some of the images in back of us, you can see that what we tried to do is we created 3 panel types. Sort of standard glass panel, a standard solid panel with a veneer stone in it, and then a mix. There's actually glass in front of stone. So that at times when you look at this building, you perceive glass in those spandrel type panels, and at times when you look at this building, you might see in that particular panel stone. And the notion was to take a masonry tradition that you see all over New York and applying it to a glass building that is more of a contemporary expression. So it was great that AZA-INT was willing to take on that particular ambition, help us put it together. So the panel type is, I think, relatively unique, and the fact that we were getting sourcing from really different places. We used an Alabama stone. It was brought to Texas to be cut and put into panels, and the panels were shipped to Italy, where they were assembled by AZA-INT into the unitized system, and then they were put on the building. So it's about how to put all that together and make it happen, and have it then appear seamless when it shows up, on the building facade. Not only seamless, but weatherproof. Not only did we have the 3 panel types that I sort of mentioned as part of the project, there were very, very large window sections. There were some great views to take advantage of, and there was a kind of scale that was desired on the interior of the unit. So there were some real technical challenges for the facade system. We also wanted a certain patterning, a kind of subtle patterning that ran through everything. So our stone, which is on the solid panels and slipped in behind the glass, is an Alabama limestone. It was deliberately chosen for its veining. It has some interesting patterning to it that we wanted to make clear. So we did, AZA-INT put into their drawings for the project, not only a system for the various materials, but for the actual individual pieces where they would go and what their patterning was, so that we'd get a kind of distribution of the patterning over the whole building. It's subtle, but I think it reads. Sometimes you wish the process were a little bit more everybody involved early on. It doesn't always happen that way. I think when we do finally get together as a group is the most critical stage of any project. When we take what we've designed and we start to really talk to the fabricator about how it's going to get put together and how it's going to get put on the building. That's when the rubber meets the road, and that's when there needs to be both. Sometimes there's a certain flexibility in terms of design intent and a flexibility in terms of getting the technology right. So you just need a really good partner, and that's what AZA-INT was the whole way.